G'day folks. Well, it's been about 3, nearly 4 weeks since I put a vid up last. Well, I went down to the track, last Tuesday. So, on a private test, oh goodness me. I tell you what, guys, the changes that I made to that carb have really made a huge difference. Unbelievable. Now we're looking like we're slightly fat on the transition into boost and a fraction up top. Still a little bit, but what a beautiful curve. The changes we made to the emulsion channel by blocking them off, one each side in the middle, and putting restrictor or going slightly smaller in the high airspeed on the bleeds on top of the carb, it's made a huge difference. We're running 82-92 jet size, and now we're getting a great solid reading on air fuels. I'm very happy with it at the moment. So the change that we made has really, it's just been incredible. It really has. So still got a little bit to go with that carb, possibly pull a tiny little bit of fuel out of it. We'll see. But for now, I'm going to turn my attention to the ignition because I'm still suffering a little bit of a funny sort of a miss up top, and I'm putting it down to now that we're starting to put the flame out. We're struggling to ignite the E85 around 5,000 revs onwards. Now, on further investigation, guys, my leads, I've done an ohm test on them, and they come in around sort of 2,000 on average. The shorter ones are about 1980, and the longer ones are around 2,300 ohms. Now, the set of leads that I'm looking at picking up are ICE Pro 100 series, and they claim that their leads are 100 ohm resistance over 1 metre. So that's pretty incredible, really. So it goes to show you the restriction or the resistance these leads were having with me were really not helping at all. They seem to be fine with pump fuel or gasoline because it doesn't take much to ignite, whereas ethanol, it takes a fair spark to ignite this fuel. So once the leads are sorted, I'm going to get a new coil as well, because the coil that I'm running is in the MSD series. It's just, look, it's nothing fancy. It's probably just an OEM replacement sort of thing. So it's the MSD, what do they call that, a Blaster SS? Blaster SS. Well, the next one I'm getting is to suit the 6 series, but it's a HVC 2, they call it. It's more for high rev application, longer run time, so to be more suited for what I need. So I'm going to mount it in just in the engine bay here around this area, so it's a lot shorter lead running to the distributor, because I think that was a lot of the problem as well. We had a bit over a foot of lead running back through into the cabin. So we'll shorten that up with some new leads and a better coil, and fingers crossed it's going to solve the little niggle up top. Now my next little trick, my next little phase of learning, guys, is to start reading plugs to aid me in my endeavour to tune this engine on the track. Now, I'll show you, actually, I'll show you this, guys. Now, it's incredible. When you start learning this sort of stuff, it's really It's amazing how much you can tell by the way the engine's running just through your plugs. Now the way you can tell with timing, guys, this is, I'm only just scratching the surface here, but as I learn more and as I improve on the way I read plugs, we're going to go on a bit of a journey with them, because this is the ultimate way of really picking up on how your engine's tuned. Obviously, every time you want to check a set of plugs, you've got to do it to a new set, and then you've got to basically put them in, do a few laps, and then do that hard pull, and then shut the engine off. And that's the only way you can really tell how your tune and each cylinder is performing. I'll just run you through this, guys. Just check this out. See the ground strap, this part here? Well, this is how you can tell where your timing is sort of situated. If you're running too aggressive timing or not enough timing, it's an indication of where your timing is at. Now, when I look at that plug there, that's number 8. I would have guessed, just looking at it, right there on that bend is roughly where the timing mark timing is. It's a bit hard to tell there, but I can sort of see it fairly easily. Now I'll go to a number 4. Now this is the one, this is quite interesting, this one. This actually tells, I think, 2 stories. You can see it there more so. See that mark there? So the more timing you run, the hotter this part gets, and you'll get a lighter colour through here, but you'll have this darker spot where it's a little bit cooler. Now obviously more timing, you'll have, your mark will come down to where it meets the thread. Less timing will creep back up around here. Well, if you look at that, I've actually got 2 little indicator marks here. Now I reckon that's through running lean up top there for a while. I'm only speculating, guys, but it tells another story. Check out the top. You can see the different colour there. So I reckon that's where I've actually had good fueling, and the timing, obviously with good fueling, the timing looked like to be a little bit conservative. If that's true, if that's what it is. But obviously you need new plugs each time you want to test this. But I'm just reading them and sort of trying to pick up what's going on there now. Now there's another way of telling there's a way of telling for air-fuel ratio. I was actually looking at a guy, and he was actually just checking it around. That's hard, I won't focus. Just around the rim here. But there's another way you can tell. You can actually cut this part off here, real careful, or cut a slot in it, and you'll get a window of the actual porcelain. And they're saying too that air fuel can be determined through the colouring of the lower half of the porcelain. So that's something I'm going to, once I get some new plugs, I'll cut these up and we'll investigate and talk about that. So that's the way of actually telling air fuel. Just to double check to make sure that your air fuel ratio gauge is sort of even, and this will give you a good indication on each cylinder too. So, and there's another way, guys, to tell whether you've got the right heat range. Is they say you really don't know the correct heat range for your spark plug unless you start to melt the porcelain a little bit. Obviously you need new plugs to do that, but if you slightly melt this part up here, you'll get little black spots through it. Apparently it's quite hard to see. You need a magnifying glass, or even he reckons a microscope, but then you can govern the heat range through that. So obviously if you're melting it, it's too hot, you move to a cooler plug until that stops. You don't want to go a range cooler than necessary. You want to sort of keep it as hot as possible but safe as possible. So these are an NGK number 7. These are. And they go through to number 11. So the higher the number, the cooler the plug range. So that'll be an interesting note to keep an eye on that to make sure everything's okay. And if it is down the track after a few months and there's no sort of indication of melting going on there, I could try, or I could opt for a warmer plug. I could go to a 6, but depending on boost too. So if I go up in boost, I may want to stick with this. I may even have to go to an 8 or a 9, who knows. But that's something I've got to keep a sort of bit of an eye on, as boost, I move boost up and down to compensate with heat range of plugs. So that's something I'm really going to take note of, guys, down the track too. And I will stick to my 25 thousandths clearance at the minute. I'm not going to sort of change that, but once I sort of put these new leads in, the new coil and a fresh set of plugs, I'll take it back down to the track and we'll test it again and move forward with it. I've got some good video footage too, guys, of a couple of runs down there, so I'll pop that up. I'll put one of them up and we'll go from there. But I don't want to start on my engine block just at the minute until I get until I get the miss out of it up top and I can sort of get my fueling a little bit better, trim it off a little bit, and we'll go from there with it. And then I'll start on this, so one thing at a time. Just a quick note, guys, I put that new fluid in. I did show you in the other video, and I adjusted up my brakes a bit at the back, and oh, they were incredible. So very happy with that. But I am actually going to a disc rear end in the next sort of 6-8 months, and I'm going to slightly taller diff ratio too. So that's probably my next sort of move on the car. Once I get this addressed, the diff change and the rear discs will be happening, and then we'll definitely move on with that once my sort of tuning is a little bit further advanced and get that sorted. But we are going to dive and going on a bit of a journey with the plug readings too. So I'm very, very excited about this, guys, because for me, reading your plugs and determining how my cylinders are running, I can, if one of them's running a little bit lean, I can compensate with a little bit more fuel. And that's a really good thing then. And, and use my air fuel ratio gauge, as just as a tool, as a guide. And I can back it up with my plugs as well. So, all right, enough babble on there. All going well. Hopefully in the next few days I'll pop a vid up when my coil turns up and my leads, and I'll do a little test with my multimeter on a comparison. So I'll leave that for the next vid on the new leads versus the old leads with my multimeter, and we'll see the difference there. So that'll be an interesting one too. All right, folks. Well, she is going well. Other than that, but we're really honing in now. So, God, I'm excited. It's bloody great. All right, folks. So I'll pop one up soon. I'll catch you later.